All right, and welcome back to another edition of Lunch with a Lawyer. And today's guest is very special to me because she's a colleague. She has been practicing family law for quite a long time, it seems, because family law is a challenging area, and we'll talk about that. Ajla Alunovic. Ajla, welcome to the show. Thanks for being with us, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for being here.
So I've been doing family law for almost 5 years now. I'm at the Schechter Law Firm in Clayton, where all we do is family law. So divorces, modifications, and paternities primarily. So no 2 days are ever the same. There's a lot of conflict, but I really enjoy the area of law. I like what I do, and it's an area that not everyone is always happy with, but we try to find a resolution that works for the client. So.
All right, before we get a little bit deeper into family law, where are you from, Ajla, originally?
Bosanski Novi.
Bosanski Novi. And how long were you when you first arrived to the United States?
I was about 9. I lived in Germany. We left Bosnia when I was about 2.5. Mm-hmm. Then lived in Germany and then moved here when I was 9.
Wow. And so what year was that?
That was in 98.
98. So where did you go to law school? I want to ask. Where did you go to high school?
I went to Melville, right across the street from you guys.
I know. Our office is right across the street from Melville High School. And there's quite a few Bosnian American kids that have gone to Melville, that are still going to Melville. And I think it's great for everybody involved. And so where did you go to law school?
I went to Valparaiso in Northwest Indiana.
Nice. And so you got out. How long have you been practicing now?
I graduated in 2014, so almost 5 years.
5 years. Yeah, that's a long time. And family law ever since, right?
Just about, yeah.
Okay, so here's kind of the way I look at family law. And we do a few cases here at the office, mostly non-contested. So both parties come to us. They say, hey, listen, we've an agreement. We just need you guys to do the paperwork for us. Yeah. And if that's not the case, what I've realized when it comes to family law, first of all, in my personal opinion, I would never do it. So ours, Almira does. And I would never do it because I early on realized that you can never, ever make both or your client happy, because the wife will come in with her expectations right here. The husband will have his expectations down here. And the reality is usually somewhere in the middle.
Always.
So both parties have got to kind of talk to their clients and kind of make them see the light at the end of the tunnel. And everybody is kind of mad at the end because they didn't get everything that they wanted. And I was like, nah, not my cup of tea. It's very emotionally draining. So tell us a little bit about, your practice and, you're dealing with
So I definitely agree with what you're saying. But a big part of my practice is also client expectation management. Clients are going to come in expecting the world. You have to make sure that you manage what they're expecting and what is reasonable in order for them not to end up disappointed in the long run. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have a client upset with me initially because I tell them, hey, I don't think you can reasonably get X, Y, and Z, but here's what I think you can get. Let's shoot for this, and this is going to be what I think helps you the most in the long run. And so when you do that early on in cases, you typically tend to get happier clients in the long run. So like I said, it's not an area that people are always going to be happy with, but it's an area that if you try to manage expectations and talk to them throughout about, hey, we can go here or we can go there, but you can't have both ways, then that seems to help a lot.
And to be honest, divorce, family law matters, always an emotionally draining experience on all sides. And, you're not immune from it. I mean, that kind of spills over to the attorneys as well when somebody calls you up and, gives you their life story and how they're heartbroken now. And how do you deal with the emotional aspect of the job?
I think I try to look at it as, for me, it's a case, and I've got, we all have lots of different cases, but to the client, it's their whole life. So I try to manage my expectations of my clients and my conversations with them and realize their whole life's changing. And so that does take an emotional toll at a point, but you probably do a lot of it too. I know Almeida does with hand-holding. It's walking them through their whole life changing and figuring out that process. So sometimes that takes an extra phone call or, an extra email or just checking in after the case is done, whatever it may be. It's just a little bit more hand-holding and personalizing what that client needs per se.
No, I tend to agree with that. So 99.9% of my work now is car accidents, and people have got a lot of questions as well, and they'll call you. I give my clients my cell phone number as well. They text me in the middle of the night, over the weekend. That's just part of the job as I look at it. And you're right when you said we've got a lot of cases, but to that specific client, that case is everything, and that's the end is the world. Yeah, the world is ending around them in the worst cases, and they need a lot of hand holding. So you're right about that. Right now, what law firm are you with right now?
I'm with the Schechter Law Firm in Clayton.
And that's all they do, family law?
All we do is family law, yeah. So domestic matters.
Very nice. How do you like them?
I love the firm I'm with. I think it's a great firm. I'm lucky to have bosses who will sit down, talk through the cases with me. It's a place where opinions are valued. We can all kind of brainstorm with each other. So it's a really good place.
How many lawyers are there at that firm?
There are currently 6 of us.
Wow, that's amazing.
So.
And a lot of support staff, I'm assuming, because there's a lot of people.
Not as many as you would think, I think. But we have a good system in place. And I think a lot of our younger attorneys, at least, tend to be more proactive. We like to do things ourselves. I always joke we're all control freaks in law. We all like to have our hand on everything we do and keep an eye on things. So I think it's a good system in place with how personal preferences work out.
And we learned this early on. There's a saying that goes, law is a demanding mistress, and there's just a lot of work to be done. What about your work schedule? I know you work a lot probably, right?
So my work schedule really varies based on what is happening with my cases. When I'm prepping for a trial or have big depositions in a case or something, then my hours extend quite a bit. But most days, I try to do 8 to 6, 7 p.m. On the really long days, it may go till 10, 11. It just depends on what the case needs of me.
Do you that, guys, from 8 a.m. until 6 or 7 p.m. on most days, and then usually it can extend to 10, 11 p.m. That's like 12, 14-hour workday. That's what we lawyers do. I know most of you think that lawyers just sit there and count their money. Unfortunately, there's, long hours behind what we do, and there's a lot of behind the scenes that clients actually don't see. We've got to prep for the trials. Client may see you at trials for like an hour or 2 or 3. They don't know that that's just like 3% of the actual work. The 97% happen behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Getting prepped for it, because I know when you show up in front of a judge and you're not prepared, yeah, it's not pretty.
It's going to be a bad day.
Yeah, usually it's a bad day for you, for your clients, for everybody involved, and that's why we work these long hours and, try to make our clients happy. I know your dad is not happy about you working those long hours, right?
It happens.
He's like, you should work less. It's too much.
Of course, it's, what are you doing? Why'd you go to school for this long to work so much? Well, that's part of why I went to school, is to be able to put the work in to build the reputation, to build, the backing, and to become an expert in the field. Ultimately, that's all of our goals, I think.
That's very true. But at the end of the day, you like what you're doing. And that's
I love what I'm doing. I love what I'm doing. I wouldn't change it. If I had to go back and do it over again, I would do it again in a heartbeat.
I'm the same
I genuinely enjoy it. So
I'm the same way, and I think that's the most important part. If you like what you're doing, it shows in your work and shows, in the outcomes for your clients as well.
And it makes time pass a lot quicker. Sometimes you just lose track of time. We were joking about the late nights. Sometimes I don't realize it's 9 p.m. until I look at a clock and I'm like, oh, okay, time to get moving.
That's very true. So I know there's a lot of jokes about, clients wanting to fight about every little thing, and when you tell them, hey, listen, yeah, you guys can, and that's what I tell my clients when they were coming in with these domestic matters. I say, yeah, you can fight with your spouse over spoons, over pictures, over couches, but at the end of the day, it's going to be this much per hour for your lawyer as well as for the lawyer on the other side. So it's probably much more, how am I going to put it, economically feasible to just sit down, get an agreement hammered out, and move on. Is that kind of like what you would like to see as well?
Absolutely. I think that if there's something of sentimental value, let's bring up that item specifically, but let's not fight about the lamp or the little things if we don't have to. In most cases, when you remind a client that they're going to spend more than the item is worth, just bickering about who gets it, and they may not end up with it at the end of the day, the tune changes, and then you can focus on the big picture items. So that does help.
Yeah, you're right. At the end of the day, if they can't agree on the spoon, it's going to get in front of the judge, and the judge is going to make the decision for them. So, how about like
That's
when it
true.
comes to kids? When kids are involved, it's always the tensions are much higher, the emotions are always higher. Like and then there's GALs involved. Explain to our viewers what a GAL actually is.
So-
I think a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, a GAL is a guardian ad litem. In most cases, GALs are appointed for kids. In some rare circumstances, they can also be appointed for an adult. And we have some cases right now that have GALs as well for adults. But the GAL is appointed for the kids usually to advocate for their best interests. So it's not what mom wants, what dad wants, or even what the kid wants necessarily. It's what that person representing the child believes is going to benefit the child the most.
Yeah, so the overriding principle in the worst cases, but when there are minor children involved, is the best interest of the child. So that's the overriding principle. And as I always tell clients, best for the two of you to sit down, because who knows your kids better than you do? It's the two of you. So sit down, hammer something out when it comes to the kids, because if you can't, GL is going to come in, and then the GL is going to make the recommendation to the judge, and the judge is going to make the recommendation. So you have got a third person that doesn't know you at all making decisions for your kids, and I just think it's wrong. But again, it's those emotions like that are high.
I completely agree. I always try to tell my clients, hey, let's sit down and talk about what issues there are as far as the kids are concerned, because at the end of the day, who knows the kids better than you guys do? The GAL doesn't know these kids that well. They get to know them obviously throughout the case, but initially, you don't want a third party deciding these big things for you. So to whatever extent we can, I try to encourage clients to sit down and figure it out. Or, if we need to all have a 4-way meeting, let's do that. Or if we need a 5-way meeting with a GAL, let's do that, But to whatever extent, regardless of if it's custody or, property division, let's sit down and hammer out as much as we can. So that way your faith isn't in the hands of a third party who doesn't know you from somebody next door.
That's very true. So I do want to be respectful of your time, and I know we've got a lunch to go to. So here you go, viewers. Actually, lunch with a lawyer. There's really going to be a lunch after this fact. So just so you know, what's the best way for somebody, if they've got any more questions about family law, what's the best way for them to contact you?
So you guys can definitely call my office line. That number is 314-727-7289. Or you can always shoot me an email. I tend to check those more than anything else, as I'm sure you probably check a lot of.
Yeah, that's very true. A lot of people do.
And my email address is isla@schechterlaw.com.
Splendid. And then if you've got any questions, and we'll post that later on, but you can always shoot me a text, and then I'll forward it on to Isla, and then we'll try to answer any questions that you may have related to family law. Again, Isla, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank
and
you
let's
so
go
much.
grab some lunch.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.